The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, recorder. Do you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Hi, Rogers. Can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome to the show. This is The Mighty Drive and I am your host, Lue de Lilian, the Princess. I welcome you on today's edition of The Mighty Drive. We are streaming live on our social media platforms. That is The Alternative Uganda and Digitalk TV on Facebook, and our YouTube channel is The Alternative Uganda. Like I told you earlier, ensonga z'olwaleero tugenda kuba tuzoogera mu Luzungu. So tutunuulira the Balaalo question in northern Uganda. What is it that the public isn't paying attention to? Is it politics at play? Since we are gearing up for the 2026 general elections, what is the situationship at this particular moment? So I welcome you on the Mighty Drive today. Be part of the discussion by joining in and dropping in your comments. I'll be reading them before we come to the end of this show. to our guest of the day. But if time allows, we're actually going to be digging in onto the issue of gold in East Africa, because if you guys don't know, Uganda is one of those countries that has gold. So did you really know? Or you're just hearing this in rumors? We have Engineer Tonny, Olanya, Olenge. I hope I've pronounced your names so well. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, my sister. Good to see you again after a long while.
Yeah, it's been long. I think we've not had you ever since this year began, right?
Yeah, sure, definitely.
Okay. So how have you been and what have you been up to?
I've been fine, going about my programs and business as a citizen of Uganda.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe after the show you're going to cash me.
yeah, sure.
Okay, we have our viewers who are seeing you for the first time, and they would love to know who is Tonny and what does he do. What does he do? Sorry.
I'm a young man who is civically cautious and aware, meaning I am into the current affairs or the current happenings in this country. I follow so much closely the politics of the country, but as well. I also have other tasks that I do.
Okay.
I currently also do work at the Cultural Institution of Acholi, Kwaro Acholi, as a team lead for research and documentation. But I've always held previous roles there. I'm also a natural resource consultant. That is in the line of my engineering career. Yeah, basically those are the areas that I'm in.
Kagamba, you have a lot of titles and you do a lot of things.
Yeah, it's about versatility. Uganda speciality is a tricky thing in Africa, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
But as a young person, how do you balance? How do you balance all that?
It comes with hard work. I want to retire at 40, so I need to put in some more effort.
Wait, you want to retire at?
40.
Oh, and then we have people who are 40 years and have not actually discovered who they are and their purpose at that age, and yet for you, you want to retire.
You know, people set different goals for themselves. So somebody could have said that mine, I want to start my life at 40. They say life begins at 40, but for me, I have targets that at 40, whatever I have achieved should be fairly enough for me to move on with life. you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes,
definitely.
Yeah.
So that is how I've tried to set mine. But of course, it's not a stagnant arrangement. It's subject to change, and you know. But for now, those are the timelines I've put for myself.
Okay, so let's actually delve into the topical discussion of the day, because it's a broader thing, and there are a lot of controversies on this matter. The Balaalo question in northern Uganda. But for someone who is actually seeing or hearing this for the first time, we would love to get the background of the matter. How did we get to this, and how did it start?
Okay, my sister, you see, when we're discussing the land question or the Balaalo question in northern Uganda, of course, northern Uganda in this context, just for the purpose of this debate, is Acholi sub-region, is West Nile sub-region, and Lamu sub-region. Then when you add Karamoja, they call it the Greater North. Yeah. If you are to put in context, you need to first ask yourself the question that how did this land become vacant? Okay? Because that's a very important question. And it also helps to answer some of the grievances that are coming up now.
Okay.
Yeah, because from the onset, it looks like the Balaalo are also victims in this case. But they're victims of a circumstance. They've just found themselves in the mix of so many things. That's why we are trying to also make sure that they understand how these things came about. Predominantly, the Acholi community also, all the people, the community in northern Uganda kept their wealth in land and cattle. Okay? If you look at the 1960s, the 1950s, the 1970s, and the 80s, the livestock industry in northern Uganda was a very big industry. There were even train trucks that would take beef all the way to Europe and all that from the north. And of course, through progressive wars that have been happening in the north, there was this war when I think President Museveni and his team were trying to take over power. Then post that war, there was also another insurgency, the LRA war, Joseph Kony. So a community that has been through war for that long time, cattle was lost. Actually, I think cattle was lost to of course, the records are subject to so many verifications. Others talk about 200,000 plus. Others talk about 400,000 herds of cattle. That's a very large number.
Okay.
Surprisingly, it's on record that the people being accused are the current UPDF officers. Okay, because previously it was NRA, but now they're saying, of course, NRA transition to UPDF. So that is the lot that is being accused for looting cattle from the region. And this is even documented when they formed what they call the war debt claimants. I think you saw elders from Teso coming to Robert Chagulanyi, Honorable Robert Chagulanyi, to demand, to look for political remedy.
Yeah.
They also had filed under something called Teso claimants. There was also Acholi war debt claimants. There was the Lao war debt claimants. So when they filed, these different entities filed a case against government.
Yeah.
That we lost cattle and we are aware your people are the one who took it. Of course, there was propaganda in our area there that the Karamoja are the ones who looted the cattle. But the cattle was taken by soldiers from the current government. So government, the president felt it was going to be a very heated issue. So he decided to negotiate with the claimants. He requested them for out of court settlement, where these people agreed that, okay, fine, we'll go for out of court settlement. And government agreed to compensate them, meaning government is pleading guilty that indeed we took the cattle. So the government accepts and the negotiation begins. And then you now see the series of the bureaucracy and the drag and pull. Every election cycle, they come and tell you are paying now in the next
we're going to be paying in the next term.
And the terms have been progressively moving. And it's very, very disheartening that you see most of the elders are dying. The old people, they have not gotten back their cattle. And what hurts is after every 5 years, you see,
it's the same thing
you see maybe after every 5 years, if you are demanding for 1,000 cows, after every 5 years they give you maybe 1 cow. They pay 1.
Out of the 1,000.
Yes, that is like giving you 1. That is like giving you a leg of your cow.
Yeah.
Because after 5 years they're giving you 1, yet you've lost a lot. That is how the restocking has failed progressively. Of course, some of us now believe it's a deliberate ploy by people within government.
Okay.
Because now we've seen it. Okay?
So
we've seen the narrative coming, the build-up, okay?
So you're insinuating that there is someone who is benefiting?
It looks to be a syndicate because cattle was taken, you accepted that you're the ones who took, you opted for out-of-court settlement, and then the processes have been stagnant within the Ministry of Justice.
And I believe you have MPs in your area MPs. Haven't they done anything about this matter? The
MPs have been trying to make as much noise as possible. Of course, MPs, they can do much.
Because we have the Acholi caucus. As
politicians, they can their role is to speak for the people, advocate. But they have done the advocacy to a level that it has become a song. Okay, there has not been good political will from the government to pay the cattle for the Acholi, for Teso warded claimants, even for the Lango people. That has been the issue. Now, after the war, LRA came in also.
Yes.
25 years plus of insurgency. Of course, still you blame it on government because if you're already in power, you have the mandate and the responsibility to take care of people and their property.
Yes.
So government failed on that.
And that is what the NRM government has promised us.
Yes, I'm telling you, government of NRM failed on their end to protect the people of Acholi from the rebels, from the insurgency. Okay? Because if you are in government, you are mandated to take care of people and their lives. But the government has been just
stamping that they actually
25 years of war is failure on their end. Okay? I will tell you that even government did not want to negotiate for peace. There was a lot of push from the likes of Norbert Mao. Okay? There was a lot of push from the leaders in Acholi, like Professor
Was government benefiting from this?
Of course, you know, war is business. There were commanders in the UPDF who did not want the war to end. Okay? And during the same LRA war, much as the rebels were killing people, a lot of atrocities were also committed by government soldiers.
Let's go back on that issue.
So I'm giving you the grievances that has built up. So now,
no, let's first clear this about the war. You're saying that government failed because if they spent 25 years without actually doing something on the matter, I want to believe they did something. That it's that you're not acknowledging what they did. However much it took time or it took long, but at least something was done.
Yes, government did their part, but it wasn't enough. And I'm also telling you, there were commanders who were frustrating government.
And you say
there were military commanders who were frustrating government.
It was though that government was benefiting from this. Why would the government benefit?
The war was good business for soldiers within the UPDF. So they were representing government. They were holding the badge of Uganda, not so. So on whose authority would I not say that it is government that was failing the war itself? There were people, and there are reports, they know it themselves, there are reports that stipulate clearly how people were dragging feet on the war. I've spoken to people who were in charge of the ministry by that time. Yes, I've had a chance to speak to a number of close sources who were telling me how the war was being frustrated. Okay, where commanders were inflating the numbers of soldiers so that government would spend more money in the war. Okay, so that context is not something they contest. So post the war, of course, I want to appreciate the leadership in Acholi, especially the cultural leadership and then the religious leadership that took a front line to push the president. Okay, because it was a very hard call for the government of Uganda to commit to have the peace process begin, okay, with the rebels to negotiate. There was a hard line that we were going to fight. And of course, the war was dragging on and on, just like I told you. So post the LRA war, but of course, even during the LRA war, what government did, which was also a mess, which disorganized the Acholi society, the more, because it also brings in the land question after the settlement from the camps. Government put the people of Acholi in what we call the internally displaced camps. Okay. Now the refugee camps that you see in Kiriandongo, in Lamour, are different.
Settlement
those are different. Those are different from the camps that we're in. I was in the camps myself. Those camps were like they would put you in a house like this, okay, and then allocate for you spaces. So it was like a settlement, okay, a settlement. So that means if fire catches one grass thatch house, the whole camp can burn, and which happened several times. The argument government put there was that we are putting you in the camps, forcefully, by the way, because the people actually did not want to go to the camps. Government said we are putting you in the camps purposefully to protect you from the LRA rebels. But that failed because so many camps were attacked by the LRA, okay? So the real purpose of taking people to the camps did not actually come out clearly. But for us, we saw it as a way of disorganizing and destroying the social fabric of the Acholi society. Because the generation of children that came from the IDPs, majority are messed up. So it is a generational crisis now that we have. That is why if you watch a documentary that was done by, I think, either BBC or one of the big platforms, it talks about the brilliant genocide. It is a systematic approach to disorganize the society, okay? The society was broken down systematically in a very deep line. Okay. So post-war, then we see the post-war reconstruction and recovery programs coming in. Of course, there were good programs that were drafted on paper. There was push to have the reparation law passed by that time. Government sat on it. There was no goodwill because reparation means government would commit to pay the war victims some percentage, and definitely also the international community would come in and all that. Okay, but there should be commitment on the government side. Government refused to put effort. Even up to now, the reparation law and the National Transitional Justice Bill, I believe Chairman Mao, as the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, is properly getting frustrated. Because by now, we've not seen anything. Not so. We would have expected, how long has he been minister? In any case, he understands these issues proper. Okay? The war in northern Uganda has not ended. There's just what we call silence of the gun, but the war has taken different shapes. Shapes in terms of poverty, shapes in terms of loss of cultural values, the breakdown of the society. the total social fabric breakdown. So war has taken different forms. War has gone into issues of the post-traumatic stress disorders, the mental health issues.
PTSD.
Those are all forms of war that have taken in now. Poverty is another form of war that has taken part in the region. So it's a vulnerable community.
Okay.
And I'm giving this build-up because many people have taken what the president has been trying to address out of context. That's why I've been trying to labor to give you this breakdown. Now, post-war, there was reconstruction programs. Money was poured in by the agencies, international community, even government put in money. We saw PRDP come in 1, 2, we saw NUSAF 1, 2, 3. NUSAF was bastardized. NUSAF has been pushed up to Busoga and some other parts of the country that is not part of northern Uganda that all did not go through the war. So you look at a situation where now you've not been through the war. The program is for the war construction, but you are also pushing to have it in other places. You'll see vehicles of NUSAF in Busoga and other places that were benefiting. I'm not saying I have problems with people from Busoga, but I'm saying the program was meant for post-war reconstruction and recovery. Yeah. It was messed up. We even saw, you've heard about Inspire Africa. The first money that Inspire Africa got was from NUSAF 3 project to build these coffee centers. Okay? And so the scam that was involved is even more disheartening because this was meant to help
all this
the
is
young
happening
people.
And the people of northern Uganda are
We've
benefiting.
We've been seeing.
Wasn't there a committee set aside to handle these people? To
handle the post-war recovery. The post-war recovery was being spearheaded by government and of course other stakeholders like the Acholi Religious Peace Leaders Initiative.
Because now, if we have these international communities coming in, wasn't there a community, a committee set aside to at least address the issues you guys were raising that we were going through to the international community to at least step in and do something about the matter? You see, the international community operated in two ways. They put money in government's pool, but also they had their own operational line. Okay, there were NGOs that were trying to help, like say in the restoration of the cultural leadership and all that. Okay, but there was the biggest funds was put in the government intervention arrangement. Okay, but most importantly, coming to the post-war programs like NUSAF 3. I think NUSAF is now coming to NUSAF 4. Okay, in NUSAF 3 is when we saw this Inspire Coffee Africa. I was in Gulu myself. I saw the project. If you see what they've built, what the Nelson Tugumes have built in Gulu, it is actually a broken structure. The roof is leaking. There's no business. There's nothing going on. And then when they came even to give accountability to the Public Accounts Committee in Parliament, you know what they said? That they spent about 3 billion plus, and the other 3 billion was used to train young people on how to drink coffee from northern Uganda. Do you teach people how to drink coffee? Really? So they spent 3 billion, which was meant for such a project for young people to be taught how to drink coffee. Just drinking, like being taught how to drink milk. Does it really make sense? So that's the level of industrial looting that happens up to now with the post-war reconstruction programs. PRDP, you saw how money was being looted and how it was being mismanaged in the office of the Prime Minister. Then Prime Minister Mam Babazi was questioned by Parliament on how they were using money to buy new Benz cars for his convoy, yet the people of the north were dying. Okay, there was a lot that needed to be done. So now that build-up of the problem continued with the post-war. I've told you how the background of how the cattle was taken and the compensations told. That is how the land remained vacant. And there was also intra-land conflicts because elders were killed during the war. Young people like us who were born in the IDP camps do not know the land boundaries. Yes. So post-war, you return and start with nothing. You start from zero. Nothing, and then you are fighting for land boundaries internally there. So now, then we started seeing other people showing interest in the land. Before the Balaalo came in, there was this, there were cattle farmers, there were cultivators also, commercial farmers. Yes. You see them in Noya, in Amoro. You see the likes of Madivani coming in, the likes of Atiak Sugar Works, big projects. Yeah. Those ones settle in and they're doing their projects. Their business and projects, yeah. And I'm giving that in context because it's also there's been a narrative that the people are being chased from the north. But there's a specific
group that is having issues, okay? Because there are people who are doing farming and they're not having any problem. So then we see 10 years back or 8 years back, depending on the timing, the cattle farmers start coming in.
Those are the
the ones they now start to refer to as the Balaalo. Of course, the Balaalo are not a tribe, okay? It's just, I think, a description from what I understand, or a word they used to name a certain group of people. So it's just a collection of cattle farmers, people who are interested in breeding their cattle, okay? Of course, it has a dimension of cultural complexities because they come from diverse entities, okay? And even the citizenship is also mixed. Others who came from Tanzania, others who came from Rwanda, others who came from DRC, others who came from Uganda, others are Ugandans.
So how did they come? Did they come with, did they come loaded, or they just came and then did a survey and then they were like, okay, now let's settle in here? How did they come?
The Balaalo, of course, you see, the land has remained vacant. I've given you context and I've told you, some of the people who are in, majority of the people who are in government are aware of the facts that there's been war, there's land remaining here, and this and that, and they know the price.
There's free land.
So they have been part of this city. So they've been part of this situation. So you'll find the people who are now taking the cattle there are people who are in government, ministers, big people in the military, and all that and all that.
They're the ones who are taking the cattle.
They're the real Balaalo. The real Balaalo are in Kampala. The ones on the ground in Gulu or in Lao, in other areas, are basically people who are taking care of cattle.
The real Balaalo.
The real owners of the cows.
The real owners of the cows are in Kampala.
Are in the ACs in Kampala. Okay? Yes.
And the people on the other side?
Are basically people who are taking care of, like herders, cattle herders. They're just moving around with the cattle on the ground. So, then issues started coming. Of course, the people welcomed them. Actually, people welcomed them in the
Because
area.
I wanted to find out how was the reception.
The
how were they received?
The reception was very good. That's why the migration or the movement, the trek to the north became a very big mass movement, okay? It became a good hotspot. The grass is there, the land is empty and vast. And when I mean vast land, I mean you drive square kilometers of land or of area that you don't see even a house or you don't see any settlement. So there is just enough grazing land. So it was an opportunity for the cattle farmers to breed their cows or to fatten them. Majority were fattening the cows and bringing them to Kampala and they slaughter. It was a big project because you would buy a cow maybe at 500,000, a small one. Within maybe a short while, you're able to sell it at 4 million, 3 million, okay? So that means it was a good business and the grass is there. Now the contention came in on how they acquired the land, okay? Because customarily land is owned customarily among the Acholi people. It's a shared space. You will not find somebody owning all the square miles of land. Well, you could have a situation where other people claim that I own these square kilometers of land, but when you dig deep, you'll find that this is a previous grazing land that used to be for a community. Remember, there were cows those days. So now they don't have cows. So people start claiming ownership. But all these lands are managed by the
people claiming,
leadership.
sorry to cut you short, the people claiming ownership, did they have land titles?
No.
They didn't have anything.
No
so
titles.
How did they claim ownership of that land when they don't even have any document to back them up?
Now, what happened, what emerged when this issue became, because land is a very big resource and a very big factor of production. So when this space remained vacant, there were also land brokers came in. Land dealers came in and said, okay, fine, we're going to hit up for this. So then they started what we could call the scramble and partition, running to grab space and claim ownership. I've given you the background of the intra-land conflicts that have happened before. And there were elders that died, and so many people don't know some of the boundaries and the history of the land. So what we mean by customary land, these are lands that are used communally, like the grazing land, the hunting grounds, very many kind of categories. So then people started coming in, they came in. Of course, there are others who argue that they bought land legitimately, which is subject to verification. And there are also groups that scrupulously got land. There were others who are renting the others who claim they bought the land. And the other thing that was done very wrongly is people were converting lease, or
we're leasing land to the
so let's say somebody buys land, then they register it and then convert it from the customary tenureship. They convert the tenureship they convert from customary, they move it to freehold, to leasehold, then they move it to freehold. Basically, I think those who drafted the Constitution of Uganda created the land tenure system in a way that if I am under the Milo land system, it is a standalone system. I don't need to convert it. It must not be converted. But the guys were finding shortcuts through the lawyers and try to and I believe the verification committee would handle that.
Let me ask you this question as well. Is there a process that one has to go through if they want to acquire land in northern Uganda? And what is that process? The question is, did these Balaalo go through all those processes? Because we have those that are insinuating that they acquired land legally.
Let me make this context clearly. The Balaalo, not all are bad. There are just a few bad apples also. Because there are others who are living well with the community, others who claim they got land.
There are those who have been there for some good time, 10 years and more.
I've integrated very well. But there are also bad apples, okay? The challenge has been that when you report these bad apples to their members, they don't want to take action on their internal whipping. They don't want to do that, okay? They themselves failed to manage themselves. Before these issues started coming up, of course there were efforts. Even me, I made efforts to reach out to their leadership, okay? But
to get to know how these people are acquiring land and the process they're going through.
To advise them even firstly how to integrate and live harmoniously with the host community, okay? So, on the issue of land acquisition, there are clear procedures, okay? One, customary ownership means that the land is governed according to the customs of the people. Okay? In any case, it means that the customs will dictate who will get the land. So if our custom says customary land or the grazing land is only managed and owned by the Acholi people, it is our custom. Okay? And this custom might have not been written as part of the constitution. Okay? So I guess you're seeing the dynamics. And in the custom, when you speak to the elders, they say, the customary land that you see here, there was blood spilled over it. We did not get this land for free. During the migration and integration, those days, when you look at the Luo migration, the Bantu migration and all that, people were fighting for what? For territory, not so? Territorial fights, for conquer. So people, that land that you see there was blood spilled over it. So the elders have been passing it over for generations. Now, the context here is this land is owned by 3 categories of people. According to our custom, that's why they say customary tenureship. Land managed according to the customs of the people. So our land is managed by 3 categories of people, because I think you've had the notion that it cannot be sold, not so? Now, the notion it cannot be sold comes from the perspective that it is governed by 3 groups of people, that the ones who are alive currently, like us, our generation, we are simply keeping it as custodians for the future generation, those yet to be born. Okay? And we got it from those who have passed on. So if you were to buy that land, and the transaction stands, you needed to have consulted the 3 categories, which is not possible. You cannot consult those who are yet to be born, you don't know them. You can't in any way consult those who have passed on.
But
so
they can
those were the caveats that were put by the cultural
They can consult
setting.
you who are here.
Now, you see, that's the dynamics. That there are people who think that they can maneuver and bypass it. You can't consult me only when there are people who are supposed to be consulted.
Because now the next generation has not yet come, and then the past generation is gone.
Elders,
so the elders who set up
this tradition, the elders who set up this tradition years back, did it in such a way that this is one of the best governance systems to keep land for the next generation. That is why the land has been as you see it. It's not because there was no possibility to run around it. But I told you clearly that there were people who felt like we can maneuver and get away with it in the law.
But there are those that are leasing it, and how are they actually doing?
Leasing is okay.
And then there's a lady that I saw. She said that she sold her land because she needed money to take care of her family. She didn't have money, but then she had land. So she felt like, if I sell this land, I'll get the money to take care of my family. But then now you're saying, for one to sell land, they have to go through all that entire process, consult from the future generation and the past generation that are not here.
There's even been a court ruling from the Supreme Court, because the district land board, some district land boards, especially that of Nwea and Amur, thought that they could give out customary land. They could lease out customary land. That's the district land board.
So the people
and the court was very clear, the Supreme Court was very clear. The customary land cannot be sold.
And then we have people who are saying that they acquired land legally.
There are people who are saying we acquired land legally, or there was a willing seller, willing buyer. You see, that narrative will not hold water. That narrative will not hold water. That is what we would call civic arrogance. Civic arrogance, where you think you can argue on the basis of law and you win on this case.
But this person acquired land from a local that side. They didn't just wake up in the morning and then go to the chairman or these other leaders without actually getting to that person who owns the land at this particular moment.
The contestation is not on private land. The contestation is on vast community land, vast customary land, okay? Which I've told you, this used to be used as hunting grounds. They used to be used as grazing grounds, okay? These are cultural sites, you know? So the contestation is not on my 1 acre.
Yeah.
Okay? It's not on my 1 acre that I do my farming and all that. No. The contestation is in the communal land or the clan land. Because you would find that where they say that they sold it, they bought it legally, you'll find that you have 10 people, or you have 1,000 people in the clan, and maybe 2 scrupulous dealers in the clan decided to put themselves as the representative of the clan and sell the land. You've not consulted all.
So now who are we blaming? And you're supposed to be blaming the clan members?
The blame is two-way.
Why are you shifting the blame to the Balaalo?
The blame is two-way. The Balaalos are also victims of the circumstance, of the build-up that I've given you. They have just met a vulnerable community, and are dealing with a community that thinks there can be a way out. Okay? The Balaalo did not understand the context that I've given you at the beginning when they were coming. For them, they thought this was just grass and it is cows.
Is it that the locals are playing ping-pong games to the Balaalo?
The locals, I've given you the background.
If someone has sold you the land, and then after some time they're like, oh, actually, these people acquired land illegally. We will not even get to this complex situation if things were done right from the times of the post-war reconstruction programs, okay? If the compensation was done, there would be no vacant land. If everything was handled well, this is a build-up of problems. The Balaalo have found themselves in the mix. And the other context is, the people of Acholi now have started to realize that, in any case, these are the people part of government. And in any case, it looks like they were part of the syndicate to create this whole situation around us. So now it has created more anger. I'm going to hold you there for a minute, and then we break. So when we return, you're going to be telling us more about this issue of the Balaalo question. Now we would also want to know why the president issues executive orders, but then nothing is actually being done. Let's break shortly. It's still the Mighty Drive. You can be part of the discussion by joining in and dropping in your questions or your comments. I'm going to be reading them before we come to the end of the show. It is the Mighty Drive. Good morning.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.